cry, and I cry for this country, Madam Speaker. Can we approach the people that I have mentioned? Can we apologize to them? Can we seek that they lift any curse that they may be having against this nation, Madam Speaker? Because we must speak, Madam Speaker. Let us approach these people. Tell them if we wronged you, we are sorry. If you have spelled any curse on this nation, we persuade you, we beseech you, please lift any such curse that may have been here, because we want our nation to heal, Madam Speaker, and we must do everything, whatever we do, whoever we talk to, but our nation must heal. Madam Speaker, I support and thank you for even the extension of time. Thank you very much.
Senator Catherine Muma, she's not here. Senator Asige.
Thank you. Thank you, Speaker. As I rise to support this motion, I also want to stand on the submission that I made last week, because everything that I said, I meant. And I also wish to appreciate our substantive speaker.
Can you just consult in low tones? Majority Leader, please guide the team to consult in low tones. Proceed, Senator Asige.
Speaker, I must begin by appreciating our substantive speaker for steering us so well through this very sensitive subject matter. He has done a very good job, and we thank him. The gig is up, Speaker. The emperor has no clothes. Speaker, I wish to lay the foundation of my contribution in the famous play titled King Lear by William Shakespeare. Widely regarded as Shakespeare's finest work, King Lear is an allegory that illustrates a sharp fall from grace of a king who is drunk with pride, with ego, the desperate need for control and praise, who makes a series of mistakes by listening to his immoral eldest two daughters and bad advisors, who exist only to praise him for their own personal gain. Though caring for him greatly and always wanting the best for him, Speaker, King Lear chooses to reject his youngest daughter, Cordelia, because she refuses to flatter or feed his ego like the others, by telling him the truth, even at the risk of her losing her inheritance. Shakespeare's motif revolves around King Lear's fall into error and Machiavellian ways, which we see when he arrogantly declares that he has ultimate power and can choose to ignore his subjects whenever he is pleased with them. His inability to see the truth leads him to lose power, wealth, his senses, his truest daughter Cordelia, and ultimately his own life. Speaker, the entire internet was screaming during Sunday night's interview with the president. Don't mean to anthropomorphize, but TV screens across the country would have turned themselves off themselves if they could, after what is said to have been a train wreck of a conversation from start to finish that left the emperor naked. I must acknowledge, however, the decision by the president to have a 2-hour unscripted sit-down, because seldom do African heads of state risk putting themselves in unpredictable, uncontrolled environments like that. With our majority leader setting the tone through this motion, let the Senate be your Cordelia, Mr. President. You are a leader in the service industry, and I was told just last night that the two most vital pillars in the service industry are perception and experience. And for such a delicate subject matter, you at the very least need a stellar crisis communications team, because your words kept fueling the fire last week. I also want to remind the president that it's not about him. It's not personal. We didn't name it Kenya Kwanza. That wasn't us. Kenya Kwanza. Not Kwanza the noun, Speaker, but Kwanza the adjective. And instead of putting Kenya first, your presidency has put Machiavellianism first, like King Lear, when all that us young people wanted was for you to put Kenya first. Like a performance review of sorts, Speaker, we expected that on his third attempt to address us on Sunday night, he would come with details, with data, definitives, strategies, but it was still so vague, so non-committal, so uninformed. It felt dismissive and disconnected. Speaker, The president went on national television without a clue of what has been happening in the country that he believes he governs. Was the deputy president right in his address last week as well, that his boss may not know all that is going on in the country? How many people are in custody, he was asked. He replied, I have a ballpark figure from the police that they have enough people. What do you say to the youth who say yours is not a listening government, he was asked. He said, I have 4 things: housing jobs, digital jobs, export of labor, manufacturing. You believed barely 1.5 years ago that you could run the country on 2.9 trillion. In a few months, you went to Parliament and requested 3.6 trillion. This year, you went to Parliament and requested 4.2 trillion. And what do they see in return? They see extravagance in government, he was told. He replied, let me tell you the following. Today, universities were almost closed because of debts of 60 billion shillings. I have enhanced their budget by 40 billion shillings because education, to me, is the greatest equalizer. Speaker, this went on and on and on. Tone deaf and not answering what Kenyans really wanted to hear from the president. Not only were shots fired at innocent young protesters last week, Speaker, but it seems in this interview we also saw shots fired at his cabinet, his deputy president, and even the communications team caught astray. So what are some solutions? Speaker, in response to austerity measures as directed by this motion, the president has on record made pronouncements of what he plans to do. Young people do not want more dialogue or multi-sectoral groups before he actions what he has already committed to do. In his Wednesday, 26th of June press conference, the president committed to do the following. 1, reduce expenditure, starting with the executive office of the president and extending it to the entire executive arm of government. 2, operational expenditure in the presidency be reduced to remove all allocations for the confidential vote, reduce travel budgets, hospitality, and purchase all motor vehicles and renovations, as well as other expenditures. Number 3, Parliament, the judiciary, and county governments working with the National Treasury also undertake budget cuts. This clearly shows, Speaker, that the president knows exactly what he needs to do and precisely what he needs to focus on. Get rid of corruption, get rid of wastage, get rid of breaching court orders, get rid of misdirective and duplicative pots of money like CDF, which completely usurp the true function of a legislator. Speaker, members of parliament are supposed to legislate and ministries are supposed to implement. No parliamentarian should have a CDF allocation because our role is simple: to represent, to oversight, and legislate. We have no business building markets and roads and hospitals. Get rid of CDF that bastardizes the role of a member of parliament. We also want a repeal of other unconstitutional legislations since this government came into power. And we want leaders to be leaders, Speaker, not leaders to be dealers. However, to achieve all this, we also want to hear definitives and strategies, not broad, pie-in-the-sky pronouncements. By now, Speaker, we should already have heard how much he will reduce expenditure in his office. How much will you cut from your travel budget, your hospitality budget, from the purchasing of motor vehicles and renovations? Speaker, the president has economic advisors who work for him round the clock and should have crunched preliminary numbers for us to see by now. On Sunday, the 30th of June, he was asked on national TV again if he'll reduce his ministers and ministries, to which he replied, and I quote, "That is an area that we will have to look into because that is a reality that we will face." It clearly shows that the president needs to do. Speaker, for my second proposal, let's go to Article 152(1) of our Constitution. That the cabinet consists of A, the president, B, the deputy president, C, the attorney general, D, not fewer than 14 and not more than 22 cabinet secretaries. This means, Speaker, that our constitution provides that the president can cut the number of ministries to 14 from the current 21, saving the country billions of shillings. The constitution goes further to say in Article 152(5) that the president, A, may reassign a cabinet secretary, B, may dismiss a cabinet secretary, and C, shall dismiss a cabinet secretary if required to do so by a resolution. Sorry, not sorry, Mr. President, but wake up your Minister of Youth Affairs, because the youth are telling you that they are desperately underserved. Wake up your Minister for Interior, because too many poorly trained, trigger-happy police officers exist under his watch. Wake up your Minister for Labour, because young people are protesting in the streets due to a lack of equal opportunities. Wake up your Minister for Roads, because we're seeing the worst levels of carnage and needless deaths of young people than in any 10-year preceding his. Wake up your Minister for Trade and Industries, because from small innovators to entrepreneurs to industries, the ecosystem she is leading has become terribly unforgiving. If you already know what needs to be done, and the Constitution gives you the power to take action, Mr. President, cabinet secretaries must be sacked. My third proposal, in reaction to point number 1 in this motion, revolves around exercise of legislative powers. Speaker, why is it that the finance bill never makes its way to the Senate for consideration? Our Constitution does not bar this upper house from jointly considering legislation, especially those with as much gravitas as a finance bill. To illustrate this, I want to go to Article 109(5) that says, a bill may be introduced by any member or committee of the relevant House of Parliament, but a money bill may only be introduced in National Assembly in accordance with Article 114. It simply says, Speaker, that a money bill may be introduced only in the National Assembly, but nowhere does it say that a money bill cannot also be considered in the Senate. Our Constitution only bars this House from introducing money bills, not from considering them. This must be corrected to avoid future constitutional misinterpretations that lead us to continue allowing the National Assembly to monopolize such crucial functions. I'm just reading the law. And while we're at it, Majority Leader, the entire country knows that our committees here are chaired and vice-chaired by your side, the government. That doesn't give balance. That doesn't give an opportunity for real unbiased and impartial looks at bills and proposals and legislation in this House. If you hold the chairmanship and also the vice-chairmanship in all committees, how are we telling the rest of the country that we are transparent and we're going to move forward in a new way? That also needs to change. Speaker, life is in the power of the tongue, because if we get this mandate, we cannot afford to mess around and continue to play politricks. My fourth proposal focuses on the presidential assent and of the Finance Bill 2024. And for that, let's go to Article 115 of the Constitution. 1. Within 14 days after receipt of the bill, the President shall A. assent to the bill, or B. refer the bill back to Parliament for reconsideration by Parliament, noting any reservations that the President has concerning the bill. Not National Assembly, Speaker. It says that it will go back to Parliament to be considered by Parliament. And the last time I checked the definition of Parliament, both houses were included. What about the conversation on salaries, Speaker? Well, I want to say the following. The Salaries and Remuneration Commission really did not read the room. Today, in order to pay all public servants, figures show that we are spending 1.1 trillion shillings, which is 46% of our budget. I want to be frank. I propose our current salaries for those at the national level be cut by 50% and our allowances be reviewed downwards. That's right. I want us to put our money where our mouth is. We shouldn't pussyfoot around that, Madam Speaker. Because let's be honest, today's salary and allowances are the only reason why people kill, steal, and destroy anything in their way in order to work in the national government. And that needs to end. Speaker, there used to be a time not long ago when being a public servant was very unattractive. I'm sure Senator Halwale will remember that if you have a good degree, a good studies and accreditation behind you, you would rather go into the private sector because it was much more lucrative than the public sector. But now that has gone upside down, Speaker. We also heard the President tell us all that we are set to lose by having rejected the finance bill on Sunday. He said, and I quote, "So what is the alternative? Help me with that, Linus, because there are only two things we can do. Either you raise money from taxes or you borrow. Period. There is no magic here," he said. Well, Mr. President, you're right, and there is no panacea, but all you had to do was ask, because the Finance Act of 2023 provides clear examples to learn from. For one, we witnessed a reduced consumption of petroleum products, a slowdown in construction due to high cost of materials, and a significant overall increase in construction costs, largely attributed to the imposition of the export investment levy, and on raw materials, that is, Speaker. Notably, imports of clinker, crucial for cement production, dropped by 77.5%. Also, remember that in the first half of the 2023-24...
Asige, I want to just inform you have 4 more minutes left.
Also, remember that in the first half of the 2023 fiscal year, the KRA missed its revenue target by a substantial 186 billion Kenya shillings, which underscores the point that overly ambitious tax measures do not always lead to increased tax collections. These figures are solid data we can trust, Speaker. Why impose more taxes, levies, and charges when we haven't fully recovered from the negative effects of the previous legislation? Many of businesses were forced to close, and some relocated to neighboring countries with more favorable tax conditions. What's the real solution, Speaker? What are the Gen Zs and the many Kenyans protesting for? We are exhausted just seeing the President on these trips every single week, as if he's Beyonce on a world tour. Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, that is. The President is not on a world tour. He should stay in the country and do his job like the rest of us do in this country. Yes, he may have had many plans, but Mr. President, exporting our brightest minds to work abroad is not the solution. This brain drain is crippling us and cannot be quantified at all. Did you know that these countries who call for Kenyan workers, do you know what they ask for when they are calling for us? They want under 45s only, highly skilled, well-educated, in good health even, and they must undergo rigorous vetting because they have a particular criteria of people they're looking for. That means that we are removing our best minds, our best workers, our best laborers, and shipping them off to Australia, Germany, England. But do they ever bring the people here, Speaker? They do not. In my conclusion, as I close, I would like to speak directly to young people. Everything was impossible until somebody found a way to make it possible. And today that was you. You have been steadfast in demanding that this government stop and listen to you. And before this moment, everyone thought it was impossible. And now, though I remain a bit skeptical of the presidency to some degree, I still stand 10 toes down in believing that Kenya will never be the same again because of you, young people. I also want to be real with you. We must stop glorifying money, praising those with flashy cars, big houses, expensive holidays, eccentric lifestyles, and filtered lives. It's us that keep applauding that behavior. We follow those accounts. We like and repost their displays of opulence every day, and this exacerbates the problem of these people wanting to keep up their public images. But not that all that glitters is gold. Why don't we go back to exalting excellence, character, conscientiousness, and all that is good and all that endures? There is a reason why Paul says the love of money is the root of all evil. We really must change. Speaker, let me land by circling back to King Lear by William Shakespeare. Anna Camerali writes that the tragedy of King Lear's lack of understanding of the consequences of his demands and actions is often observed to be like that of a spoiled child. But it has also been noted that his behavior is equally likely to be seen in parents who have never adjusted to their children having grown up. Speaker, Kenya's democracy has grown up. It has matured and it's maturing into a faceless, fearless, tribeless legion of...
Time is up. Half a minute, you finish that sentence. Give a 1 minute, Secretariat.
Thank you, Speaker. I was saying, Kenya's democracy has grown up. It has matured, it's maturing into a faceless, fearless, and tribeless legion of the majority of our population, who have a good constitution, but unfortunately in the wrong hands. Speaker, Kenya, I stand by them in this House. I speak for them in this House. And when they name the 25th of June, 2024 Z-Day, they will know that you did that. I thank you.
Senator Catherine Moma.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to speak to this very important motion, the State of the Nation. Madam Speaker, because we have some time, allow me to begin with sending my sincere condolences to all families that were affected by the loss of their loved ones. Allow me to name, because I'll use my time to name the young people who lost their lives. Madam Speaker, we lost the life of Brian Lemayan Kasaine from Narok, Austin Makoha Nakuru, Mike Kihunga Nakuru, Kelvin Madanga Nakuru, Chris Gitonga Nanyuki, Kennedy Onyango, whose mother's image has not left my mind, from Rongai. We lost Rex Masai from Machakos, Matthew Njoroge, Kevin Mawasi, Bisley Kogi, David Chege, Erickson Kialo Mutisia, Ibrahim Kamau Anjiru, Kennedy Odhiambo Maina, Wilson Sitati, Kennedy Njeru, Eric Kayoni Kieni, Eric Kiratu, Brian Kimathi, Kariton Mwangi, Ernest Kanyi, Caroline Shiramba from Kakamega, Brayo from Kisumu, Mbithi Alaya Scott from Kisumu,